Welcome back, friends. Korean medical schools are infamous for their intensity. Places where study until you die feels less like a joke and more like daily reality. Getting in is a family triumph. Failing out is a shame that lingers for generations. From years of cram schools and the brutal Sunung exam, students arrive only to face 18-hour study days, library beds, and constant ranking against equally brilliant peers. Yonsei University College of Medicine in Seoul's Sodaemun district is one such place, open 24 hours, stocked with vending machines, designed for endless study. During finals, desks become permanent camps. Fluorescent lights erase time, and exhaustion turns into a badge of honor. It's here, in the blur between focus and collapse, that some students claim to see the same impossible figure. Sleep deprivation can explain hallucinations, but what if the stress attracts something else? Something that feeds on desperation and understands too well the cost of perfection. This story takes place during finals week, where the line between brilliance and breakdown all but disappears. Let's call him Jae-woo, a 24-year-old third-year medical student whose entire life had been built on achievement. First in his class, perfect Sunung scores, accepted to Yonsei on scholarship. His parents, who ran a small restaurant in Busan, had sacrificed everything so their son could become the family's first doctor. That pressure shaped his every choice. While classmates sometimes relaxed, Jae-woo's schedule was relentless. He calculated he needed to stay in the top 5% to secure a Seoul residency. Anything less would dishonor his family's sacrifice. Finals week was brutal. Exams covering 2 years of material, failure meaning repeating the year. Jae-woo had lived in the hospital's 24-hour study hall for 6 straight days, fueled by coffee, kimbap, and questionable stimulants. His corner desk kept him isolated, focused, always alert. The room was harshly lit, air thick with caffeine and exhaustion. By his 6th night, words blurred on the page, his mind struggling to focus. Around 3:17 a.m., as he rubbed his eyes, he noticed something new. Someone was sitting at the desk directly across from him. That desk had been empty all night. Most students preferred spots near outlets and vending machines. Now a woman sat there, in a white lab coat over dark clothes, long black hair hiding her face as she bent over a thick textbook. At first, Jae-woo felt solidarity. Another student, just as driven, pushing through exhaustion. Yet as the minutes stretched on, unease grew. She never shifted, never reached for water, never moved at all. Her stillness was too complete, too unnatural. Around 4:30 a.m., his curiosity got the better of him. He glanced up, wondering what she was studying. As if sensing it, she slowly raised her head. Her hair fell back like a curtain, and there were no features, only smooth, pale skin, blank, luminescent, as if bone itself had been polished. Jae-woo's training grasped for explanations, genetic abnormality, surgical trauma, but the truth pressed colder. This wasn't medical. This wasn't possible. The faceless woman looked at him for a moment, then calmly bent back over her book, as if reading with eyes she did not have. Around them, no one else seemed to notice. Jae-woo managed only 2 hours of restless sleep, head on his books as cleaning staff passed through. By morning, the desk across from him was empty, and he almost convinced himself it had been a hallucination. Too little sleep, too much caffeine. But that evening, when he returned with fresh energy drinks, she was there again. Same desk, same lab coat, same unbroken stillness. This time, he watched more closely. Her posture was flawless, back straight, shoulders relaxed, head perfectly angled toward the book, pages turned at regular intervals, her hand moving as if making notes, though he never saw the pen clearly. What unsettled Jae-woo most was how normal she seemed. Faceless, yes, but radiating the same obsessive focus as every student in the room. As the night stretched on, he found himself studying more efficiently, caught in the strange intensity her presence created. Other students came and went, slumping from exhaustion, but she remained tireless, never breaking concentration. Around 2 a.m., Jae-woo noticed something that made his skin crawl. When other students walked past their area, they showed no awareness of the woman's presence. A tired-looking fourth-year student actually bumped into her chair while reaching for a dropped pen, but acted as if he had hit an empty seat. A group of first-year students claimed the table directly beside hers, spreading out their materials and talking in whispers, completely oblivious to the figure sitting less than a meter away. It was as if the faceless woman existed in a parallel dimension, visible only to Jae-woo. Despite the supernatural impossibility of the situation, Jae-woo began to find her presence oddly comforting. She never interrupted his concentration, never made distracting sounds, never exhibited the restless energy that made studying with other people so challenging. She was, in many ways, the perfect study partner. Completely focused, utterly silent, and radiating an intensity of purpose that inspired him to match her dedication. By 4 a.m., Jae-woo had covered more material than he typically managed in an entire day. His notes were clearer, his understanding deeper, and for the first time in weeks, he felt like he might actually be prepared for the upcoming examinations. The woman seemed to sense his improved focus. When he paused to stretch his neck and look around the room, he caught her featureless face turned toward him in what felt like approval. Without eyes, mouth, or any discernible expression, she somehow conveyed a sense of shared purpose, of mutual recognition between two scholars committed to excellence despite the personal cost. As dawn approached and the first pale light began filtering through the study room's high windows, the woman carefully closed her textbook and gathered her materials with the same deliberate precision she had shown all night. She stood gracefully, adjusted her white lab coat, and walked toward the exit without making a sound. Jae-woo watched her go, noting that her footsteps produced no echo in the hard-floored corridor beyond the study room. When the automatic doors slid shut behind her, he realized he had been holding his breath. The next morning, exhausted but oddly exhilarated by his productive night, Jae-woo mentioned his study partner to his roommate Min-ho, describing her as a mysteriously dedicated student who seemed to study all night without breaks. White lab coat? Long black hair? Never talks to anyone? Min-ho asked with a strange expression. You've seen her too? Min-ho shook his head slowly. No, but you're not the first person to mention someone like that. There are stories, you know, Students who claim they've seen a woman studying in the library, in the hospital study rooms, always during exam periods, always alone, always, he paused, always described as having something wrong with her face. The revelation that other students had encountered similar figures should have frightened Jae-woo, but instead, it filled him with a strange sense of validation. He wasn't losing his mind. He was experiencing something that connected him to a broader mystery within the medical school's walls. On the third night, emboldened by curiosity and academic desperation, his pathology exam was in 48 hours. Jae-woo came prepared. He brought a small digital camera disguised as a pen, positioned his phone to record video, and even managed to convince his study group partner, Sung-min, to stay late as a witness. The faceless woman appeared at exactly 11:47 p.m., taking her usual position at the desk across from Jae-woo. This time, however, he was close enough to observe details he had missed before. Her white lab coat bore a name tag, though the text seemed to flicker between visible and invisible, making it impossible to read clearly. Her textbooks were thick medical volumes, but the covers appeared aged, with typography that looked decades out of date. Most fascinating of all, she was taking notes. Her pen moved across notebook pages with the fluid precision of someone accustomed to extensive writing. But when Jae-woo tried to photograph the pages, his camera showed only blank paper. Sung-min, despite Jae-woo's insistent whispering, saw nothing unusual. "There's nobody at that desk," he said, looking directly at the spot where the woman sat. "Are you feeling okay? You've been pushing pretty hard lately." But Jae-woo could see her clearly. More than that, he began to notice that her notes were responding to his own study topics. When he switched from cardiovascular pathology to neurological disorders, her writing changed pace and style. When he struggled with a particularly complex concept, she would pause in her own work and tilt her featureless face toward him with what felt like attention or concern. Around 3 a.m., something unprecedented happened. As Jae-woo wrestled with understanding the pathophysiology of multiple sclerosis, a topic that had been troubling him for days, the woman's notebook page began to glow with soft, phosphorescent text. Korean characters appeared and disappeared like messages written in light, providing explanations and memory devices that perfectly addressed his confusion. The notes were brilliant, not just medically accurate, but pedagogically sophisticated. The work of someone who understood both the subject matter and the art of teaching. Jae-woo frantically tried to copy them into his own notebook, but the glowing text faded as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the memory of insights that suddenly made complex medical concepts crystal clear. When Sung-min left around 4 a.m., exhausted and convinced his study partner was having a breakdown, Jae-woo remained alone with the faceless woman. Emboldened by her apparent willingness to help, he spoke directly to her for the first time. "Who are you?" he whispered in Korean. "Why are you helping me?" The woman's featureless face turned toward him, and for a moment, the smooth surface seemed to ripple, as if features were trying to emerge from beneath the blank skin. Then she returned her attention to her notebook and began writing more furiously than before. The next morning, Jae-woo sought out Mrs. Kim, the elderly librarian who had worked at Yonsei's medical library for over 30 years. If anyone would know about the school's history and its unusual inhabitants, it would be her. "Ah," Mrs. Kim said when Jae-woo carefully described his encounters. "You've met Soo-jin." "Soo-jin?" Mrs. Kim glanced around the empty library, then gestured for Jae-woo to follow her to a quiet corner. Park Soo-jin, brilliant student maybe 20 years ago, top of her class, dedicated beyond reason. She was working on research that could have revolutionized reconstructive surgery. What happened to her? Chemical accident in the laboratory. 3rd year. Just like you. She was working late, as always, trying to perfect a technique for facial nerve regeneration. Something went wrong with the chemical bath she was using. Mrs. Kim's voice grew quiet. The damage was extensive. Her face was completely destroyed. Jae-woo felt a chill of understanding. She died? Not immediately. She spent months in the hospital, underwent dozens of surgeries, but the damage was too severe. The worst part was that her brilliant mind remained intact, trapped in a body she could no longer bear to see in mirrors. She took her own life during final exams. The administration quietly removed all references to her research, her academic records, even her name from class photos. They were afraid it would discourage other students, create a culture of fear around laboratory work. Mrs. Kim pulled out a dusty yearbook from 1995 and flipped to a page that showed group photos of 3rd-year medical students. In the bottom corner, there was a space where a photo had been carefully cut out, leaving only a name caption: Park Soo-jin, future plastic surgeon. Her research notes were brilliant, Mrs. Kim continued. I kept copies before they were destroyed. She had developed techniques that are only now being discovered by current researchers. But because of the accident, because of the cover-up, her contributions to medical science were erased, along with her identity. Jae-woo stared at the empty space where Soo-jin's photo should have been. The faceless woman wasn't just helping him study. She was trying to ensure that knowledge, even her own forgotten knowledge, continued to be passed down to future generations of medical students. Armed with the knowledge of Soo-jin's tragic story, Jae-woo approached his final night of studying with a different perspective. When the faceless woman appeared at her usual desk, he no longer saw a supernatural threat, but a brilliant colleague whose contributions to medicine had been unjustly erased from history. Soo-jin Sunbae, he said quietly, using the respectful term for a senior student. I know who you are now. I know what happened to you. The woman's featureless face turned toward him, and this time Jae-woo was certain he sensed recognition, not just awareness, but gratitude for being acknowledged by name. That night, their study session became a collaboration unlike anything Jae-woo had ever experienced. Soo-jin's notebook pages glowed with detailed explanations of reconstructive surgery techniques, nerve regeneration protocols, and innovative approaches to facial trauma treatment. The information was decades ahead of current medical practice, representing research that had been lost when her records were destroyed. Jae-woo copied everything he could, his own notebook filling with insights that bridged the gap between Soo-jin's pioneering work and contemporary medical understanding. When he struggled to understand complex chemical interactions, her glowing notes provided elegant explanations. When he needed to memorize anatomical relationships, she offered memory devices that were both scientifically accurate and poetically beautiful. As dawn approached and final exams loomed just hours away, Soo-jin closed her textbook with ceremonial care. She stood, adjusted her white lab coat, and for the first time since Jae-woo had encountered her, she moved toward his desk instead of toward the exit. She placed her hand on his shoulder. He felt the touch as cool but oddly comforting, and her featureless face tilted down toward his notes. Where her mouth should have been, Jae-woo heard, as clearly as if she had spoken aloud, "Use this knowledge well. Don't let it be forgotten again." Then she was gone, not walking away, but simply ceasing to exist, leaving only the faint scent of laboratory chemicals and the echo of years of dedicated study. Jae-woo's final examinations were the best he had ever taken. The insights from Soo-jin's research allowed him to answer questions with a depth of understanding that impressed even his professors. But more importantly, he had found his calling: reconstructive surgery, with a special focus on facial trauma treatment. For his senior thesis project, Jae-woo chose to research the history of facial reconstruction techniques at Yonsei Medical College. His advisor initially discouraged the topic as too narrow, but Jae-woo persisted, driven by a promise he had made to a faceless woman in a fluorescent-lit study room. The faceless woman never appeared in the study room again, but students reported feeling a sense of encouragement during late-night study sessions, as if someone was watching over their academic struggles with understanding and support. In Korean academic culture, the concept of sunbae-hubei relationships, the bonds between senior and junior students, extends far beyond graduation. The idea that knowledge and mentorship continue across generations is fundamental to Korean educational philosophy. Soo-jin's appearance as a Dalgyal Gwishin represents the extreme dedication to learning that Korean culture both celebrates and sometimes takes to dangerous extremes. Her faceless state symbolizes the erasure of individual identity that can occur when institutional reputation becomes more important than individual recognition. In Korean folklore, spirits who died with unfulfilled academic or professional goals often return to complete their work through living students, transforming personal tragedy into continuing contributions to knowledge. Medical researchers might point to the well-documented effects of extreme sleep deprivation and academic stress on perception and memory. The complex medical insights that Jae-woo attributed to Soo-jin could have been the result of his own subconscious mind processing information he had encountered in various textbooks and research papers. The glowing notes might have been hypnagogic hallucinations, vivid dreams that occur in the transitional state between waking and sleeping. His subsequent academic success could be attributed to the intense study sessions themselves, rather than supernatural assistance. What do you think was really guiding Jae-woo's studies during those long nights? Was it Soo-jin's spirit sharing her forgotten research? Or something deeper about how knowledge and dedication transcend individual mortality? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more true ghost stories from across Asia.